Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the Dillon Precision XL750. And while this is probably one of the best, if not the best, progressive presses that you can get, it doesn't come without its problems. And you know, just like a car, high mileage, this press is very high mileage. That's one of the first XL750s that I got, and it's had its share of problems. There's wear items on here that are going to break. This is not going to run flawlessly for your entire life. There are bits and pieces that are going to break. I'm going to show you what those are, and we're just going to jump into it and start with the first thing that broke on this press, and we'll move from there. So stick around, let's jump into it. Shouldn't be too long, but let's get started. So the first thing that broke on my press is this spring right here. This is on your slide bar, and where it will break is right here where the hoop is, and basically it's just the movement of the spring back and forth on this pin. A real quick fix is take one of the next loops in the spring, bend it over, and that'll get you up and running real quick. But they do include these in your spare parts kit, so that's something to consider. But this was the first thing that broke on my XL750. Now, like I said, this spring breaking is inevitable, and typically, again, it's right, a little fuzz there, right there on this pin. So one way to kind of prolong the life of it is take you and just put you a little bit of grease on it right there and kind of rub it in. That'll help lubricate that a little bit, keep it from wearing out so fast. And then you'll want to do the same thing on the back side of the spring underneath the primer assembly, and just go ahead and, this is the actual Dillon grease gun that comes in with their maintenance kit. But on all those spring points, that's a good tip. Put some grease there, and that'll help prolong the life of the spring, but inevitably it's going to break. Now, this was one of the earlier 750s that come out from Dillon, and they actually, there's several guys have videos on this slide lever right here. But what had happened was over time, because this guide block here wasn't adjusted properly, and some of these come from the factory that way, but it was putting too much pressure right here in the bend on this slide rod, and, or I guess you would call this the operating rod, that's the proper terminology, but it broke right there in the bend. So to fix that, we had to make an adjustment to this bracket here to get this pulley centered down a little bit so it wasn't putting so much pressure there on the bend. And then I haven't had an issue since. I think if you go back in one of my earlier videos when this happened, I explained how that whole process worked. But if you've got one of the newer versions, I think that's corrected by Dillon. But this is an earlier unit, and that particular point there on the op rod did break, and these are available. I did pick up a couple extra just in case, because I got several 750s, but this is the only press that I had the issue with. Now, the next spring that I had break was the spring right here, and that's what allows this to, I'm gonna put the press down a little bit, but you can see how it rotates and then snaps back. That is this spring right here. And again, it broke right there at the loop, and I just folded it over because I didn't have a spare parts kit at the beginning with this press. But as you can see, I've already got some grease on there. So again, applying a little bit of grease in that area on that pin will definitely prolong the life of the loop there at the end of the spring. But that's going to break, I guarantee it, over time. Another common failure that occurs on this press is the pawl right here, and this is what slides down here on your brass bearing that actually rotates the shell plate. And I had this break up in here, and let me grab one of the spares that I have real quick here, just one second. All right, so here's one of my spares. Actually had this pawl break. I'm trying to remember where, but I think it was just right here on this ring. I think right in that area. But over time, this will fatigue. It's very good plastic, very hard. but it did wear out and broke. And this does not come in your spare parts kit. I picked up a couple of these. They're pretty cheap on Dillon's website. If you look in your manual, you'll be able to find part numbers for all of these little bits and pieces, but this is something that I keep extra of. Like I said, when it originally failed, I thought the spring had broke, and then come to find out it was actually this pulse. So just a quick little tip there. If you're using your machine a lot, maybe pick you up one of these as well. Now, while we've been talking about springs, there's one that's pretty tricky to figure out, and that's right here on your case feed slide. There is a spring up underneath here, and getting that out basically with a pick and sliding this out and replacing the spring. This didn't happen right away. I would say we were in the ballpark of, I want to say maybe 75,000-ish cycles on the machine before that actually broke. But that is something that is in your spare parts kit. I believe I had one of those available. But yeah, there's a spring inside here, and that one did fail, like I said, over the course of several thousand cycles on the press. So here's an interesting one. I was using this press so much. This is an aluminum roller handle. This is obviously steel here. And I started feeling it become gritty, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. There's no bearing in here at all, but there is a C-clip here on the inside. If you remove that C-clip, you can pull this handle off. And I applied, it was dry as a bone. I applied some grease in here and reinstalled the C-clip, and it was fine after that. On subsequent roller handles that I got, I just went ahead and took it apart anyways, and there was a little bit of grease in there that come from Dillon. However, I must have ran this one so much that the grease actually ran out or dried out, and it started galding on the handle. And it didn't affect the function, but you know, as you cycle this and you start feeling that grit, it just gets kind of annoying. But take the C-clip out, pull the handle off, apply you a decent amount of grease in there, reinstall it, and you're good to go. All right, so I want to talk about a common failure, and this is generally due to operator error. If you run into a situation where your primer slide is failing to pick up primers, 99% of the time, one of two things have happened. You've either, this piece, this end tip on the primer tube is broken, and generally this occurs when new guys first set up their press. The first problem is, as you can see, there is, you know, like a ledge here, or, you know, a slot. There's a corresponding slot down here in the base of the primer magazine. But if you twist it, you can see if I don't have it lined up, this sticks up quite a bit, and then guys will subsequently tighten this down with it out of position. But if you rotate it, it'll eventually fall into place just like that. So then you thread on your knurled end cap here, and what happens, like I said, 99% of the time, guys will crank this down. And when you crank it down, you essentially smash the end tip, and it won't pick up primers consistently, getting my words all mixed up here, or it won't pick them up at all. So how I always set these up is I will basically turn it, and if I am not squeezing very hard, but that's basically all you need right there. All we're doing is keeping that from bumping up and down, and then obviously look inside and make sure that your tube's centered up. And then a lot of guys will put this on and twist it, and then they'll twist this knurled knob a little far. One thing I always do is always kind of loosen up those screws a little bit, because I just want this to sit here. That's it. So if you're having issues picking up primers, 99% of the time, those are the two common failure points. So another topic I kind of want to touch on a little bit is, you know, guys will buy a new press and sometimes they're waiting on components, so they start looking at, okay, well, what can I do with my press to make it better? On this press, there is no shell plate bearings, there is no roller here on my case slide. You know, all this is just factory Dillon stuff. And like I said, this press, it's probably more than that, at least 75,000 rounds on this press. This press is probably 2-3 years old, and I have used it. The key to keeping it running, I have never felt the need for, you know, any of the aftermarket shell plates, the rollers, the bearings, all the 3D printed stuff on this press. If you maintain it and set it up, it just works. I've never been sponsored by any of the aftermarket parts. You know, early on I've tried them. I didn't find that they were any benefit really whatsoever, but a lot of guys will swear by them. But you know, if you're watching this video and someone tells you, well, you have to have this bearing, or you don't have to have it. Like I said, all of my XL750s are basically as you've seen. Any upgrades that you see on it are either one of two things. You know, like the Dillon roller handle bullet tray, I think are great add-ons to the press, but they're Dillon add-ons. All of my stuff sits on inline fabrication mounts, just because I like the flexibility of it. You don't necessarily have to do any of that. You can bolt it right to your bench and go. You know, on the XL750, a must-have accessory, in my opinion, is the case feeder. It just complements the press so well, and it makes it a lot more fun, a lot more productive. But I just wanted to do a quick note on, you know, adding all that, and I always refer to it as snake oil products. You really don't need those things. The key to this press is keeping it lubricated. You know your grease points, those springs that I showed you, keep grease on those, keep it clean, wipe it down. That's the big thing. Keep the dust off of it if you don't use it a lot, but keep it well lubricated and you're gonna be set. So anyways, that's gonna wrap this video up, not very long. But if you guys have any questions, hit me up on my email, squatchreloading@gmail.com. We are still on Facebook and Instagram at Squatch Reloaded. A little bit of a name change. We're doing some different things here on the channel. A lot of our off-road stuff, installs, things like that. Still doing reloading stuff. It's just a little more complicated with the new YouTube guidelines, but I love fielding your guys' questions. And so hit me up that way. That's a great way. If you're needing some help, get with me. I'd be more than happy to help you out, time permitting. But that's going to wrap this one up. If you would, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that very much, and it helps us out. Also working on a merch store, so that'll be fun if we can ever get that up and going. But until next time, guys, God bless.